I mean, is to continue to meet the moment, this moment, with as much truth of who you are in this moment. I think I'm supposed to say V instead of Eve, but yeah. So speaking of this moment, so that feels that feels like the biggest lesson is the lesson of their example of just not holding on to some didactic absolute truth ever, but knowing like I have the space and I deserve to continue to evolve and learn and grow and be in my truth, no matter who I disappoint, no matter who I may confuse. That my space to be is my space to be.
That's great. Thank you. I wanted to ask also about, do you ever get to talk to your younger self? Do you ever speak to her and let her know how you're doing now? And what do you say? What do you say if you ever speak to your old, younger Kerry? Or what would you say?
Yeah, sometimes I speak to her because, there's a great phrase that I think of, a saying, if it's hysterical, it's historical. And so sometimes if I'm like really upset about something or in a lot of anxiety or fear, I think it is my younger self often reacting. And so sometimes I'll speak to that version of me to try to wrap my head around a moment and to try to bring myself into what sort of the extra years has taught me, that things are not as scary, that my worst fears don't always unfold, and that even when they do, I have lived through it. And so I try to like offer my current wisdom to that younger fear, and try to have them meet each other and calm young girl stuff, Oh, can you hear me? You're good?
Yeah, I said my sound is good. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe weird. I guess I have two more questions because I know you have to head out. But one of the questions I wanted to ask was about the world where women are, Black women particularly, but all women and poor women in the world are loved and cared for. What does that world look like to you, and what sacrifices do you believe we have to make to get there?
To get to a place where Black women are loved unconditionally?
Yeah, across the world.
I mean, we have to start with unconditionally loving ourselves. And I don't mean that as like to try to shame us, to say like, we have to, it's up to us to love ourselves. I don't mean that's the full answer to the problem, right? There are systems in place that make it hard. But for me, the ability to sustain a fight for my right to live and be in as much liberation as possible, like I have to believe, I have to choose self-love to be in that fight. And I'm stronger in that fight when I pick up actions of self-love. It's only sustainable for me if there's a willingness to fill the well with, loving compassion for myself. And then I do think, I really love that the way you keep phrasing it is really about us everywhere, because I do think there is such enormous power in our shared connection across the diaspora. And so the more that we can step into that, it's really exciting to think about how powerful we could be. But I think, really, really, really loving ourselves, loving each other in a personal way, right? Like loving our sisters out loud and in front of each other, so that even the next generation sees how much worth we deserve and can share. And then, like figuring out, in terms of like fighting for it, I always think like figure out what you have to offer, what you have to share. For some people, it might be producing a documentary. For other people, it might be holding a bake sale and giving that money to the Girl Scout troop in your community, right? Like whatever it is that you can bring, whether it's time or money or relationship or letter writing or phone calling or writing performance or performing somebody else's performance, capturing a story for your sister, giving your story to V-Day, to this journey, to Voices, like whatever it is that you can give, just give and trust that it's enough.
Yeah. I wanted to ask about the challenge that you may face in trying to tell stories on stage. I think, or in film, I think it's a big order for art to have to hold them out. There's a lot of expectation for an art piece. And I wanted to ask you what have been the things you learned and the challenges you faced and thinking about how to hold for all that you're doing with those stories. What are the limitations of storytelling that you've had to face?
Well, I think the danger is that when there's not enough stories about any community, then the pressure is on for that one story to make room for everybody. And so I've just really tried to resist that temptation to make art that is for everybody or that everybody then can relate to. Like I feel like that the specificity of whatever story I'm telling will make room for everybody. Whether they step into it or not is their choice, but I can't dumb it down, water it down, cater it to. I just have to tell the truth of that particular narrative. So for me, it's been audience member because I'm just never going to. That's never going to be fulfilling for me as an artist, and it's never going to allow the story I'm telling to be the story that it needs to be. The story has to belong to itself. So I think the more that we create art that tells stories about the women, the lives of Black women, the more we're all able to take risks, right? Because we don't hold the pressure of having to be everybody's story. But it's also why pieces that allow for multiple stories, the piece like the work that you're collecting, that you're curating, it's so important because in itself your piece is asking for a multitude of voices, asking for a multitude of perspectives and identities and what it means to walk in these bodies. So that kind of work is so necessary because it allows an audience, it allows each of us to sit down and say like, oh, look at the vastness of who we are.
I think you just saying that brought up
yeah.
We're trying also to expand from moving forward from the vagina to our voices, right? Expanding our relationships and how can gender be more expansive. I wanted to ask you how you learned in your journey to complicate gender and your expanse. What struggles may you still have this time transforming and rooting gender norm in a way that made you when you were coming up? And has excited you and what also challenged you about that?
Yeah, I think it's such a good question. We have a couple of projects that we're working on at my company that I didn't really realize. I'm now starting to see as we're developing these projects, like, oh, I'm low key a little bit obsessed with this like gender norm moment that we're living in because we have to make room for more courageous exploration of how we express our gender. We've always had to do it in the Black community because so much of how we have been attacked and disempowered and really abused as a community has been to attack our roles in our families, our ability to be men or to be women. And so then the aggressive pursuit of those traditional norms has had such a negative impact on our community, right? We're just looking where are people uprooted, stolen from home, just desperately looking to figure out who we are and how we can be with each other when we've been told we're not allowed to be with each other or even be unto ourselves. So really committing to understanding how gender and like a healthy embrace of gender fluidity and gender curiosity, particularly in how we express our gender and our gender roles in families, it's necessary to the healing of our community. It really, really is.
Yeah, that's so lovely.
Thanks.
So I guess the last one I was going to share was about it's a quote, and I just want to say thank you for your time again. I know that you're so busy and working on so much, but this is exciting for us. It meant a lot for us to have someone who was a Black woman that was a part of the Vagina Blog be a full circle as we create this piece that's centering Black women's stories. Thank you. Robin D.G. Kelly has a quote. He wrote this book called Freedom Dreams, which is a big inspiration of mine. And in the quote at the end of the book, he says, "What shall we build on the ashes of a nightmare? Unless we have space to imagine and a vision of what it means fully to realize our humanity, all the protests and demonstrations in the world won't bring about our I get chills every night. I wanted to ask you, as we exist on the ashes of a night, as we are reimagining what we want to see, if you had all the resources and all the things to your fingertips, what projects are you excited to create into the world? What magic do you want to be able to be a part of doing and fostering? I know you're doing so much already, and maybe there's a way to explain that. Like, what is the things that you're doing now that currently is excited? It makes me excited about the future and what we are building.
Well, I want to first say thank you so much for doing this work, for embarking on this journey to create something that's so needed in the tradition of work that has been so liberating to really single out Black women and hold space for us, because we are always holding space for everybody, saving elections, and that's what we do, right? We swoop in and save. We raise other people's children, and we don't get the space to raise ourselves up. So I'm so grateful that you're doing this work. And I want to be really, really honest and say that in this moment, the work for me looks a lot like a nap. Like I know that there's like really exciting creation on the horizon, and I'm actually directing something for television starting next week, and when that's done, it's really time to like
Rest.
Go in, right? Like we have to give ourselves space to get quiet and know that where we are creating from is actually a space of health and well-being, and maybe not perfect. I'm not saying like I'm going to take a nap and then have no feelings and create something ideal, right? It just means like I need to step off the treadmill for a minute to know that the next thing that I'm creating is for me, so that I can bring all of that truth of who I am as a woman, as a Black person, as a member of the diaspora. Like I need a moment before I'm rising from ashes to just be, And I think we have to give that to ourselves. We have to give when we need it. And thank God we don't all need it at the same time usually. So that's great, because we can say like, go ahead, sis. I'm going to sit here and be ready because you're going to need an intermission and I'll step in then, right? Like we have to do that.
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you so much for that. I have to remind myself of that. So every time another Black woman tells and says that, I think sometimes we are made to feel guilty for rest, especially patriarchal and productivity. Go, go, go. So I hope that you get rest. I thank you for continue to do on and off screen, and we look forward to continuing to build with you and build relationships with the work that you are doing. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you so much. What a joy. I love talking to you.
Yes, anytime.
Everybody send us your stories. Let yourself be seen. Be part of this work. It will cleanse your soul.
And you have a wonderful rest of your day. Yeah. Bye. Have one.
Bye.